Hello, my name is Fiona Addy, personal money coach with Alterna. And joining me today is Chris Purdy, sales representative for Bosley Real Estate, and Andrew Schwelm, account manager for Genworth Financial Canada. Our topic today is investing in rental properties. We'll look at what makes a good investment property, what financial programs you can tap into, what are your borrowing options, and how you can get approved. Our first speaker is Chris Purdy. Chris was invited to take part in the Alterna webinar discussion. She is offering information from her experience as a real estate agent. However, her comments are not to be construed as advice regarding any specific real estate undertaking. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Fiona. Investing in rental properties. Sounds like a great idea. I work in that area for people who will have some supplemental rental on the side, perhaps. Just so you're clear off the top, I'm not a commercial agent. I don't deal in large commercial purchases and sales. And for that, you would go to a commercial agent, like for an apartment building, that kind of thing. What we're talking about today are residential properties that have a rental component, or, for example, a condo unit that you could rent outright. And how you go about doing that, and what are the things you should look out for, because this is a process that is great on paper, but when you get into it, it is loaded with legal obligations and responsibilities, and it can be a nightmare. You don't want it to be, it doesn't have to be, but you have to be very careful how you do it in that case. And so hopefully I'll be able to give you a few ideas in that regard. 3 questions you're going to deal with in this process. Why are you buying? What are your legal responsibilities? And, of course, will it pay off in the end? Is it worth it financially to do it? Why are you buying? Okay, the first one is a supplemental income. Most common in Toronto and Ottawa is the basement apartment. Very common in core Toronto because of a change of city regulations in that regard in the 90s, freeing up the possibility of having basement apartments in homes. What that does is it gives you some extra income on the side. It's a great idea. It also provides affordable housing usually in highly concentrated areas where people are needing accessible housing, affordable housing, so they don't have to actually buy something. They want to rent something near where they work or study or whatever it is. So it can suit the owner, and it can suit the person who rents as well. It can be a very productive thing. The other process is, this often happens for people who are going to downsize at some point. Older individuals, couples, they may be selling their large family home and want to move into something that's much more manageable, something they can leave in the winter months if they want and not worry about securing the property. So they look to buying, for example, a condo unit, and they'll rent it out for the first few years. And then when they're ready to retire and have all that in order and sell their house, they have a property to move into. At that point, it probably will have appreciated considerably as well. And in the meantime, they rent it to either a tenant or they could rent it to their children going to school or working in a situation who aren't in a position yet to buy. So it can be a very productive way to approach the investment market. Another way to invest is it's a straight ahead investment for a future return on that investment. So that could be buying a condo, buying a house, renting it out, maybe renovating it and flipping it, maybe buying a pre-construction condo. And all those kinds of alternatives are different ways as well of investing for future use. What are you buying? The secondary suite, or the accessory apartment as it's also known. Most commonly, it's the basement unit. There are a few rules around that, but it's usually something you would rent to a tenant or a family, friend, or members of your own family. It's very common in essentially residential neighborhoods. So there are issues around that, and we'll get into more detail later. Another, as we mentioned before, another thing that you can buy for the investment is the condo as a resale unit, one that's already been lived in, a pre-construction condo unit that you're going to hold on to until the condo corporation is registered, and then you'll sell it, or you could call it flipping because nobody's ever lived in it. and a pre-construction unit that you will end up renting. So those three areas of condo purchases. And then the multi-unit residence, as I mentioned earlier, I won't be dealing with that here today, but that's when you have 4, 6 and up residential areas in a building. Excuse me. What are some of the overall issues of concern when you're looking at doing this kind of project? You have to consider, one, the neighborhood that you're in, that the property is in. Is it primarily single-family residential? Or are there things around like colleges and hospitals, universities in a core area? Excuse me. For rental, ideal is a location where there are places where people are going to be studying, where they're going to be working, close to transit. You think in the mind of the person who might rent a basement apartment. Where will they be coming from, and why would they need this kind of more affordable unit? If you're in the middle of a suburb somewhere outside the core of Ottawa or Toronto, for example, and everybody drives everywhere, and it's large, detached, single-family homes. One, they probably have rules against basement apartments. Two, even if you did get a tenant, what kind of tenant is going to be there? That's a more awkward situation for a tenant. So things to think about there in terms of neighborhood. Also, the issue of appreciation. If you're buying a condo, for example, on King West, it's probably going to appreciate in value over time faster than perhaps, don't want to assume anything here, but I would guess, than say in Brampton or, a smaller center. The pressures aren't as great as they are in the core areas. Zoning, big issue to consider. You've got to make sure that if you're planning on renting something out, that you're allowed to rent it out. If it's in a house, like an accessory apartment, a basement apartment, make sure that you're allowed to do that, because you really don't want to end up with some expensive issues, legal issues in that regard. If it's a condo, you have to make sure that the condo corporation allows rentals. A lot of condos don't. And so you want your agent to make sure about that up front before you start making an offer on a property, that you can actually do in the end what you want to with this unit. Another thing to consider is that this is specific to the City of Toronto. I'm not sure about the City of Ottawa. The City of Toronto has what's called enhanced authority to protect existing units. If you're looking at a property like, say it's a rooming house, rooming houses abound in downtown Toronto. And the way they operate is they have maybe 3 or 4 rooms on a floor and 1 kitchen and 1 bathroom per floor. So residents have their own room and then they share the facilities. There may be people in the basement. There may be people on the 3rd floor. There's a lot of people packed into those buildings. The issue here is that there is a regulation that you cannot automatically, for example, buy such a rooming house and say, you know what, I'm going to turn this into 2 fantastic rental units. It'll be great. Great investment. I'll get my money back. It's in a great location. There's a big problem there. The enhanced authority to protect existing units, what that means is that any property that has 6 or more units in it, so basically you're talking about a boarding house or maybe a small apartment building, you cannot remove those units, those living or those residences for people. When it's already established that that many people make those properties home, you can't just wipe them out. You have to make special application to the city to allow that, and it's not guaranteed. And the whole rationale behind that, which is quite understandable, is that these are relatively quite affordable living places for many, many people who can't afford even a full apartment to rent. So just knocking them off, you're sending a lot of people out onto the street who may not be able to find anything comparable to what they have, and that's the rationale behind that law rule. Another thing to consider with the thought of purchasing a property with rental in it is how it's involved, how it's used right now, its current use. Is it an investment property now? Well, if it is, then you've really got no problem in that regard, assuming you've checked zoning and everything's okay. You're continuing its current use, so that's the easiest course. If it's currently single family and you're going to put in a basement apartment or you're going to develop something as a basement apartment, you've got to be very careful because you're changing its use. That area is glossed over a lot in offers and in listings. Most of the properties are listed as single family residential on your offer. Usually it says single family residential, but oh gee, there's a basement apartment there. That impacts you in many ways, and you want to make sure that it's allowed for you to do that, just in a legal sense and a zoning sense. Is the property, if it has a basement apartment in it, for example, already, is it tenanted? Big issues there. Is it vacant? More issues there. That can impact you financially. If it's tenanted, it can impact you in terms of, are you assuming the tenants or do you want vacant possession? And I'll talk more about that later. Then there's the structure of the actual building. Continuing along with the basement apartment theme, which I seem to be focusing on pretty heavily here, is that space retrofitted, i.e., was it at one point an unfinished basement? Somebody came along and slapped up drywall and put in a kitchen and extended the plumbing and put in a bathroom. And voila, a basement apartment. Okay, that sounds great, but is it legal? How was it done? Got to be very careful about that. You will notice, I'm sure, or your agent will tell you on practically every listing that comes out in the city of Toronto and many other places, like Ottawa, for example, and there will be a line on the listing that says, agent and vendor do not warrant retrofit status. And that basically means, no, we take absolutely no responsibility for the legality of this basement apartment. So there's two ways you go. You try to figure out if it could be legal, or you acknowledge, you accept the fact that it's not legal. Right? And I would say, gee, I don't know, 80% of basement apartments in the city of Toronto are not legal. You know, it's huge. That doesn't mean they're bad necessarily. It just means they haven't gone through the approval processes. So if you're taking something like that on, you might want to do your due diligence and figure out at least what you're dealing with. You ask for, you know, if an apartment has been put in, you ask for permits that have been obtained from the city approvals, any receipts for work done, spec sheets, any final inspections, fire, electrical, building, the big three, fire, electrical, building, huge importance to anybody considering tenants. And we'll go on about that a little later too. Or if you can't get any of that stuff, you've got to decide, okay, I'm taking it anyway. I accept that I don't really know what I'm dealing with, or walk away from putting an offer in on a property like that. And here now we have probably the biggest issue, I think. Well, okay, the last one's pretty strong, the safety of the unit, but comes into play here, this issue of you as landlord. Now, I want you to just take a pause here and think about that for a minute.